Cal, this game preview is a bit of a conflict of interest for me because on one hand, Fins fan has been really good to our YouTube channel. Dolphins fans far and wide have kind of tuned into our content over the last couple years. However, at my roots, at my core, occasionally a 49ers homer. So Fins fan, forgive me if my take sounds a little biased here, because it is. I am going to be pro Niner mostly during this recording, but I will say that at least my co-host Kyle can at least neutralize that slightly, even though he constantly rags on the Dolphins, aside from this turnaround year that is now in front of us. Kyle, the 8-3 Dolphins go into San Francisco Sunday night. Oh, not Sunday night football, because instead the NFL decided to keep Colts and Cowboys. So we get to see Jeff Saturday on a Sunday night. Apparently he did something dumb in the Monday night game. We don't know what it is. We didn't get a chance to check it in. Turns out it's not very fun to watch the Colts in prime time. Tell that to the NFL. Said of that, we get to see this in the afternoon games, Miami versus San Francisco. Early impressions of this game, 3.5 points in favor of the Niners.
I mean, you have a really bloated idea of your football team that you want to put them on Sunday Night Football. Because quite frankly, I would have picked Kansas City and Cincinnati if we're going to flex a Sunday night game in there. I would have chose that over your Dolphins and Niners game.
Are you telling me you don't want to see this game with a little bit of drama in the background, a little bit of drama caused by former 49er Raheem Mostert, essentially calling out the medical staff, saying that we have a quarterback that can finally sling it, saying that this team is more talented. And of course, Deebo Samuel chimes in today to say, stop yourself, Raheem, be real with yourself. So getting a little bit spicy in terms of that bulletin board material.
Yeah, fighting back and forth. I have immense respect for Raheem Mostert because he was the person who's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be playing with punctured lungs and broken legs. And everyone's like, what kind of craziness is this? So immense respect for Raheem Mostert. But yeah, I love the beef. Love the beef between the Dolphins and 49ers. It's great. There's a lot of overlap between the two teams. I know Jeff Wilson got hurt in the last game, so he might not play against the Niners this week, but I mean, there's a lot of overlap clearly between those teams. It's kind of what the Dolphins were modeling their team after this.
Yeah,
offseason.
A lot of people have noted the irony that, speaking of running back injuries, Kyle Shanahan's not too unfamiliar with running back injuries. Elijah Mitchell out 6 to 8 weeks with an MCL sprain, similar injury to what he suffered earlier in the year. Meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey, traded 3 draft picks to acquire him, is dealing with knee irritation. Whatever that means. The common theme on Twitter.
Maybe Raheem Mostert had good reason to sit out that season. I mean, football's just kind of stupid.
On Twitter is be a nice week to have Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I get that. Would be a nice week to have Raheem Mostert too, but you kind of ran him out of town too. So
well, when a guy doesn't play on the field, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you get the game check either way.
Yeah, whatever. Michael Thomas ruined his career playing through a broken leg, but if
it's
Raheem
a tough guy sport.
I reject all of these notions, but I reject all of the toxic football culture. But at the same time, I do think the 49ers
get paid millions either way. Injured, hurt, they get paid millions either way.
You're part of the problem, Juju. I'm just saying that right now. You're part of the problem when it comes to enabling toxic football culture.
It's football.
We can change toxic football culture. Anyways, the 49ers. So what's interesting is, I don't know if you saw the game on Sunday with the Saints. They showed a graphic that's basically like, since the Christian McCaffrey trade, no single player has gone for more than 24% of the 49ers offensive plays. And as a reference point, Justin Jefferson, who again is a wide receiver, he's not really lining up in the backfield very much. So, that changes the dynamic there. Running backs usually have a higher percentage of plays than wide receivers do. Justin Jefferson has a 36% usage rate with the Vikings. No single 49er has more than 24%. And it's like distributed between Mitchell and McCaffrey and Deebo and Ayuk and George Kittle. They made this fun graphic with a pie and kind of showed how each player is getting a percentage of the pie. Super interesting, because I've heard 49ers fans up here in Northern California who are like, well, why the hell did you trade for Christian McCaffrey if you're just going to do the same offense with him? And I'm like, I just think it's interesting because just because you gave up those picks doesn't necessarily mean you have to use him. You should use him to the best abilities of your offense. And while the 49ers offense looked a little constipated on Sunday, the other games have shown good results in terms of building out, a sustained formula for an offense that's like top 15 in the league.
I have a simple answer for why there was a little bit of a malaise that befell the Niners in that Saints game. Not only are you talking about a short week playing on Monday Night Football, but you also get back in from Mexico on Tuesday, and you're playing in the middle of a Thanksgiving Day week, which I know that the Niners didn't take an off day. They still practiced through Thanksgiving, but people make plans. People make plans with the family. So you have the Mexico travel day and Thanksgiving. I kind of expected their offense to be a little bit wonky. You probably would have hoped for a little bit better results too, but you also factor in the Saints finally got healthy. They had multiple players that were on the injured list come back this past week. You have Cam Jordan come back, big piece. You have Davenport come back, big piece. Still no Marshawn Lattimore, but there's still enough talented pieces on the Saints roster to give you problems offensively.
Yeah, and the Saints pitched what I have described and will continue to describe the greatest shutout in NFL history. I think the Saints played the best game ever by a team who got shut out. I haven't verified this by going back to see other teams that got shut out, but I know there's only like a handful of shutouts every year. And Saints had multiple chances to score at the goal line. Alvin Kamara got the ball popped at the 1 yard line on one of those that didn't end on a turnover on downs. Jimmy G should have thrown a pick six. He got tackled at like the 9 yard line, and then they turned it over on downs because that offense is kind of constipated for the Saints.
Actually, it was a overturn by a penalty. The pick six.
Oh, it did?
Potential pick six you were talking about.
Yes, I must have missed that. I just remember seeing Jimmy G running backwards trying to tackle a safety and then kind of looked away after that. So good to know he didn't have the pick six that took away the only touchdown that he threw in the game.
So that's still 5 straight games now without a pick for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Sure, if you want to. He did technically throw that interception, but,
we're not PFF here. We're not talking turnover-worthy plays. We're talking turnovers, touchdowns. And there was 1 touchdown, no turnovers.
5th highest rated passer in the NFL, Jimmy Garoppolo. I hate it. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Why did you draft Trey Lance? Anyways, but the 49ers... The 49ers have this offense that is working well. And you'll remember when we did our 49ers reaction to the Christian McCaffrey trade, I said, this is something that's going to need to take 4 games, 8 games, 12 games, 20 games to really identify how they want to use Christian McCaffrey. And I feel the same way going through these 4 games. I think the first game, they obviously didn't use him because it was new to the playbook. Then they came out the next week and it was like, we're going to use him a bunch over and over again. And then in the New Mexico City game, it was, again, this balanced attack. And then you saw something similar. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell being out might change circumstantial evidence. But again, this is why it's going to take really like a season's worth of evidence to figure out how they want to use Christian McCaffrey in this offense. And it's been really interesting to watch, especially because all of a sudden Kittle's look kind of okay again for the first time since the middle of last year. So I think it's been super fascinating to watch this experiment in real time as they switch their roster up.
I think the big story for the Niners, a lot of people are going to point to, is this number 1 rated defense in the league. And I'm going to read off some metrics, courtesy actually of a friend of the show, Jason Aponte, actually tweeted this out, where the Niners are versus the NFL averages. So currently they're allowing 60 less yards per game. They're allowing a little bit less than a full yard per play.
Wow.
In terms of rushing yards, 40 less than the league average. In terms of rushing yards per play, a full yard 0.1 less than the league average. Passing yards, 19 less than the league average. Interception rate, they have about a 0.5 difference in the league average. Sack pass attempt, whatever, a 2.31. And then first downs per game, 3 less than the league average. So the Niners defense has been good. But have they been challenged? That has been the question that a lot of Niners fans have been trying to answer, because you look at this recent stretch of games, you played Andy Dalton, you played Kyler Murray in that diminishing Arizona Cardinals, you played the Rams. We know how bad the Rams have been offensively. I'm not saying that the Niners defense isn't good, because I think they are, but I think that a lot of these stats we're seeing are a little bit misleading only because the quality of the opponent hasn't been there. And I would argue that I think they could get better. I think they can be better because they haven't even really had the full complement on the defensive line. Eric Armstead hasn't played since early October. Javon Kinlaw, obviously been MIA the majority of his career, but this year has been no different. We haven't seen a lot of Javon Kinlaw out there. And that's why I think they have one of the league's worst defenses against short distance runs. they're allowing 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s to be converted on a majority of those plays. That I think that's a bad indication if we start getting into these tougher playoff matchups, when you start playing a team like Miami, who knows what you do and knows what you do well, because that's going to be the game within the game here. Mike McDaniel versus essentially his mentor in Kyle Shanahan. You want to talk about a guy that knows your personnel and knows your personnel in and out, has been in your offensive meeting rooms? That's been Mike McDaniel for the last 5 years with Kyle Shanahan. How much does that affect the game? What do you think there?
Well, this is the interesting part about this, because like you were talking about with the Niners, I'll go back to my favorite DVOA statistic because I always have that on speed dial. The Niners are 5th defensively right now in the sport, but they're also now ahead of Tampa and Denver, which last week, both of those teams were ahead of San Francisco, but then they just flip-flopped after the shutout. So San Francisco's kind of in that like 6 to 10 best defense range if you take it game situation and not great offenses that they've played into account. They're somewhere in that 6 to 10 range of a very, very good defense. And like you said, Miami Dolphins offense, number 2 in the league. That's the matchup that you would look at and say that's where the game will be decided, right? Best unit often wins. Well, it's Dolphins offense. It's top 5 in the league. 49ers defense, according to the metrics Jason put out, a top 5 defense in the league. Theoretically, that's where this game is going to be won. And I think similarly, you're going to see a lot of like Jalen Waddle in space. I would expect a lot of those plays, considering that Charvarius Ward is playing, right? He's healthy right now for the Niners.
He's healthy, but he's been banged up pretty much the majority of the year. There's not a game that doesn't go by where you don't see Charvarius Ward go down with at least one nick or injury during the game, which is concerning, but that is also very par for the course in general with the Niners. At least they've been fortunate the last 3 weeks that when guys go down with injuries, they've been able to come back in the game. This past week, we did see Deebo also had a little bit of a strain. He has like 3 different strains going on. We had starting right guard Spencer Buford in a walking boot. I should mention something because you're about to mention this Dolphins offense and how good they've been. They had Terron Armstead go down with a pec injury. And Terron Armstead, when he went down in that Houston game, now you're playing Houston, okay, so you're starting to mail it in because you just wrecked them in the first half of that game. But as soon as Terron Armstead left that game, there was a notable difference in how this Miami offense was able to perform. They also have Austin Jackson injured on the other side of the offensive line. So they have 2 backup tackles when you're talking about the Niners. They have Eric Armstead potentially coming back this week, and they have Nick Bosa, who is at least top 3 minimum for Defensive Player of the Year, is averaging a sack a week. You're telling me that he's not going to have a little bit of fun against 2 backup left tackles, right tackles, essentially?
Juju, it's almost like people forget the Dolphins had the 32nd ranked offensive line in the NFL last year.
And it got so much better with Terron Armstead. So,
which if you're looking for a way this whole season's going to fall apart, that might be part of it. Once they play against Kansas City, who has sneaky good pass rush, or they play against Buffalo, who theoretically right now has Von Miller. I know he suffered a bad-looking injury on Thursday, but
I'll give you a stat when it comes to Terron Armstead. That pec injury in 2018, missed 5 games. When you talk about the Bills and the Jets, they're chasing them in division. This couldn't have come at a worse time for Miami.
I don't want to get too far away from the point I was leading towards with Charvarius Ward, though. Charvarius Ward and either a linebacker safety hybrid. I'm not sure which they'll choose in terms of, like, maybe it's Jimmy Ward and they'll bring him down, but basically they'll have a corner and a linebacker safety hybrid shadowing Tyreek Hill for most of the game. So if you get Jalen Waddle in space, that's a big thing that could break their way against the 49ers defense. And like you said, 49ers aren't great on those short yardage run situations, which Dolphins have gotten better in that circumstance. Again, this is more of a McDaniel play calling decision. Like, what's the play call you make on 3rd and 1 more than it is like their ability to execute? Because you're going to execute 3rd and 1s happen, 2-3 times a game. You're probably going to have that circumstance come up and maybe he'll make a play calling decision there. But
when they happen, they're usually very important.
But I think it's difficult to just do analysis because I can't predict what McDaniel is going to do in that circumstance. So like, yeah. I understand the point of like, that's where there's a weak spot in the Niners defense. I think the easier one to point to is what kind of game Jalen Waddle is going to have. Yeah. If you told me Jalen Waddle went for 100 yards and a touchdown in this game and the Dolphins win 24-21, where like the Waddle touchdown is the difference in the game, I would totally believe that. In fact, I'd say it might be a probable outcome. Gesicki might walk away with a touchdown, maybe a bullshit one like River Craycraft at the goal line or something, but 49ers have really good goal line defense. So I will add to that point.
Here's what I think the Niners have to do to win in this game. They have to keep Tua in the pocket. Generally, when they're able to contain quarterbacks in the pocket and don't allow them to leak outside, that's when they tend to have their best success. They unfortunately failed to do that a little bit, and Andy Dalton was able to break contain on them a couple times in this New Orleans Saints game. So hopefully that's a coaching point and they can correct that, and we don't see too many of those. They generally do a good job on explosive plays. They don't allow a ton of those. And when you talk about what the Miami Dolphins offense is with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, a lot of explosive plays. We'll see if they mix in some crossing patterns and some stuff to kind of hit them in stride and get them in space. That could be pose potential issues for the Niners as they try and maneuver around like some of the injuries that they've had as well. You're going to have to hope that you get your best in coverage game from like guys like Fred Warner, Talanoa Hufanga, who's more of a box safety, more of a big hitter for us. Those are the guys that you're going to have to see step up, and you need takeaways in this game. This game is going to be largely dictated by the takeaway numbers, which means that you're going to need Jimmy Garoppolo to continue his streak of not throwing any interceptions. And you're going to also need to break a streak because since coming off the concussion protocol, Tua also has not thrown an interception. Tua has thrown 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions since that injury he sustained against Cincinnati. Those are the combination of factors, I think, for the Niners. Obviously, I'm going to go with the Niners because, come on, guys. I mean, let's be real here. I got the helmet on the desk. Did you think I'm going to go any different way? However, I will say, baby. However, I will say, Dolphins fans, come on. You know you got my respect. Love any of you that follow the channel. We don't mince words. We got you guys. We got you guys for content. Any other week, you know I'm on board. I'm rooting for you guys. Just this week, let me have this.
Bring it to and on. We love you. We love to and on out here. But for all the talk we had about the top 5 offense versus top 5 defense, the matchup I'm actually more interested to watch is Jimmy Garoppolo against the Dolphins defense, because as we have noted on previous episodes, the Dolphins defense is not good this season. So it will be interesting to see how they decide to Jimmy Garoppolo is his own person and can function as a quarterback. It's not like we're talking about Mike White here. Like Jimmy Garoppolo is a capable starting quarterback, but it will be interesting to see how they use Jimmy Garoppolo or what types of plays they call for Jimmy Garoppolo in this game.
Interesting trend, at least the last couple weeks. The Niners have passed significantly more than they normally do. There's the stat about Kyle Shanahan when his running backs rush over 40 times. He's like only lost 1 game, I think, if not undefeated. Some ridiculous number. But yeah, at least the last couple weeks, you go back to the Arizona game, they knew what the strength of the offense was. It was passing the football. This past week against New Orleans, it was a lot tougher sledding, and that mostly was due to the pressure that New Orleans was able to get. So for Miami, you have to kind of get a pass rush. If you don't get a pass rush, then it becomes easier for Jimmy to just quickly distribute to guys like Kittle, like Ayuk, to Deebo if he's healthy, and Christian McCaffrey if he's healthy. Those are 2 big injury concerns. I
will say Kyle Shanahan is the one person in the NFL I can point to and say he's smart enough to recognize we're more talented, so we're just going to do the same. We're going to do the beat us with we're more talented, and we're going to dare you to beat us. So against the Cardinals, who have the worst secondary on paper in the NFL and the 30th ranked secondary in the NFL this year. Cornerbacks, like pass defense is what I'm talking about here. Budda Baker's really good, but pass defense, awful for the Cardinals. Yeah, he was kind of smart enough to be like, we know where our bread is buttered. Let's just throw the ball on this defense. They suck. We're going to score 38 points. Exactly. And the interesting thing with the Dolphins is that the Dolphins are average at stopping the run and average to below average at stopping the pass. So that's what I'm saying. Interesting to see how they do it. They can kind of do what they want because the Niners have a way more talented offense. I guess the Dolphins have a lot of talent on defense. It's just been really underachieving. Point being, I'm interested to see what Garoppolo does. I'm going to pick the 49ers because the 49ers are favored in this game. And I genuinely believe the 49ers are the second, if not best team in the NFC. And in order for them to get that positioning, they got to win a couple of these toss-up games. So I believe that San Francisco will win this football game. And I think the spread is 3.5 points. So I think Vegas kind of agrees with me. I'm going to take the Niners, and you're going to take the Niners.
Big stretch coming up for the Niners. They have this game. They have Tampa. They have Seattle coming up. So this is going to be a make or break December for the 49ers. Anyway, guys, let us know below in the comments section. Are you going with the Dolphins? Are you going with the Niners? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all our social medias. From Juju, from Kyle, stay safe, happy, and healthy. And we will see you next time.